What's up, guys? So in this video, well, this is kind of a continuation video. In a previous video, I unboxed AliExpress Hydrofoil, a cheap one, and I need to build a board for it because I'm making a prone foil surfboard, I guess, just to dip my feet into it and see what it's like. So I need a board. I bought some EPS foam just because I thought it'd be kind of interesting to try out this new EPS foam that I found at Home Depot. It's a 4x8 inch sheet that I cut in half so I could get it home. It's 3 inches thick, so I'm going to have to glue it together in order to get a thickness that I can work with. So I'm going to show you how to do that. I have all kinds of videos on my channel on how to build surfboards, so for those of you who subscribe to my channel, you probably already know that. For those of you who don't, welcome, and yeah, I'm not going to go into super detail on all of the steps. First thing I'm going to do, I'm going to hot wire it, cut this down to the size that roughly that I'm going to probably want anywhere from 5 to 6 feet. I haven't quite decided that yet, but at least I want to be able to glue this together, put a stringer in it. It's interesting, this foam is fairly dense. I got this stuff in Canada. I don't know if you can get this stuff in the States. This stuff is made in Canada. It's fairly dense. It's not bad. It says it's for high compressive loads. They use it for hydronic floor heating systems, continuous exterior basement walls, sheathing. It's got a vapor barrier, it looks like built in, so this is a piece of plastic on both sides. So yeah, if you're using this for home construction, it's probably pretty nice. For me, I gotta peel this off. All right, let's get into it. I suppose this is like hot knife through butter. It's not pretty, but it works. I got ratchet straps in these blocks to hold down the center of the two pieces of foam, clamps all around the perimeter. The polyurethane glue will expand and fill in any little voids and give a really nice, strong adhesion between the two pieces of foam. And that's what the bottom looks like too, because you gotta extend these pieces down in order to get enough pressure in the center. Because the foam is wider than it is thick, so you need to be able to put pressure right down in the center. So that's what these pieces are for. So for the stringer, I just took some plywood and I kind of came up with a design just looking at different boards online. Since this is such an emerging new type of surfing, there's not a ton of boards out there. There's a few, but not as many when you do a search for them. So I just got a general idea of what the board should be like. So it should have a nice thick profile, especially back here where we're going to be mounting the mounting box. I'm not using what they call a tuttle, I'm using like the plate mount type. Next up, I made 3 of them, and that's so one will go in the board and 2 of them will be used to hot wire out the blank that I have back there that I've already glued together. If you look at the shape, she's chunky, she's big. You're not really surfing this in the surf, What you want is to have a good amount of float so you can get out, so it's going to be shorter, thicker than a traditional board. So it would have been hard to modify one of my existing boards as a donor board. It probably wouldn't have worked so well. So I'm glad I'm scratch making a board. Let's move on to hot wiring. Oh, if you're wondering how I drew out this profile, really I just took a dowel. I didn't record it, but I just kind of sketched it out, freehanded it, and then just laid a dowel down and then just kind of connected the lines. Once I had a rough idea of how thick I wanted everything. I have other videos on my channel on how I make stringers, but anyways, that's kind of how I did it. No magic to it. Just looked at existing ones and just kind of created one just on drawing directly on the plywood. And I used carpet tape to glue all three pieces together when I cut it out. So it's carpet tape's nice and thin, so that's works really well. Look how good that glue line looks. From the Gorilla Glue, me clamping these two together, so my method of, compressing it worked really well with the ratchet straps and all the clamps. That's a nice tight seam. You don't want big gaps because the bigger the gap, the weaker the Gorilla Glue will be. Alright, I got the foam hot wired squared off on both sides. I got the other block over there. What I'm going to do is take my stringer, draw out the outline on all four sides, because I'm going to take two of the stringers that I made, and those are going to be my hot wiring templates. The third one will be the stringer itself. So I want to mark so that way I know where to position the two stringers on either side of the blocks of foam, and they will be my guides. Pretty easy. Alright, so the next day I'm going to apply polyurethane glue to the other side of the stringer and then use ratchet straps and clamps just to clamp it all together. I'll just add in here that this EPS foam is a little bit, it's not as dense. I did measure the density of it. I hived off some extra pieces, weighed it, made like a half a cubic foot, and it comes in about 1.3 to 1.4 pounds per cubic foot. So it's not super dense, so I'm going to have to make up for it with a heavier glassing schedule. But I think it'll be okay. Okay, to hotwire the blank, what I'm going to do is I traced out the template profile on the position on the block of foam on both sides. And then now I'm going to take my two additional stringers that I cut out, and I'm just going to raise it maybe 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch past the outline. And then I'm going to tape it down, clamp it on both sides, and then use this top edge as the hot wire guide, and then hot wire that. So if you guys don't have a hot wire cutter, you can just use a saw and just kind of peel off a bunch of the foam. But building a hot wire cutter is not that hard. I got some videos on my channel on how to do it, so you can try that as well. This is definitely the best way of doing it though. It's so quick and easy. that's not bad. I do it in sections. I don't do this often, so it takes a little bit of practice. And I don't know if I got my hot wire turned up hot enough. There we go, now we're cooking with gas. This also isn't the best foam, like I mentioned before, because the beads are quite big, and I think when I go to shape it, this foam is going to tear out quite a bit. And I definitely will need to vent this because there's a lot of air in this, because as I mentioned, the density in this foam isn't that good. But it should be fun to try. There, that looks great. Alright, I got a template that I made on the computer. There's not a lot of designs. Since this is such a newer type of surfing, trying to figure out what type of board shape to go with was a little bit harder. So I traced out some existing one that I found on the web, and I created a separate video on how to create templates using the computer and then being able to blow it up. It's really handy to be able to see your template on the computer just to give a sense of what you're going for. So anyways, this is what I got here. I'm going to trace it out, cut out the outline, start shaping. The glue seam worked out really well too. I got a really nice bond. Alright, I'm gonna cut out the outline, profile this down. I'll tell you one thing, working in the winter with EPS foam, you always end up with the stuff all over you because it's just, the static electricity just causes it to stick to you like crazy. I think this foam is kind of like the stuff they use for pop-out boards or like the cheap Chinese-made boards. The foamies and stuff. It'll work, but it probably won't last for the long term, but at least it'll get me into foiling. Alright, I'm going to level off both sides, draw the rail bands, shape the rail bands real quick. For the rail bands, I'm going to go with something fairly chunky, because I want a lot of float. Alright, I got the place cleaned up and I got myself cleaned up a bit. Not a big deal, good thing to have a vacuum. I drew out some rail bands, just some rough ideas of what I'm going to do. It's very simple. The deck I'm going to do like 2 inches from the middle, inward. I haven't really quite figured out how much to go up on the bottom. And then on the bottom, okay, sorry, this is the bottom. The other side's the deck. But at the deck, I'm gonna go like 2 inches in. And then on the bottom, I'm probably gonna go like 4 inches in. And then I'm not quite sure where I'm gonna go on the rail. I've never shaped one of these before, so I'm just gonna eye it. So that's all you can do. Well, I'm just gonna sketch something out and see what it looks like. See if I'm happy with it. Kind of just have to go with experience and just stuff that you see. Actually, I don't know why I said 4 inches. It's gonna be more like 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches max. It's gonna be a chunky boy. So for the deck, I'm probably gonna go not very deep. I want it flat. I want as much volume as possible. I think I'll just do 1 inch, see what it looks like. It's not gonna have much of a rail at all. 1 foot back from nose, 3/8 maybe, 1/2 inch. And I think at the tail I'll do the same. I got the Cassette, the track box. I love what they put for the description of contents. Surfing. So that's what's in this, surfing. Anyways, this is the cassette I got that I ordered off AliExpress. So thank you, Ryan, for dropping me an email regarding these types of track boxes, that they're basically garbage. But that's okay, because I can reuse these tracks. I'm pretty sure these are replicas of the Futures single fin boxes. What Ryan suggested, and some of the research I've done, is you can make your own cassette. You do it by using 2-part polyurethane foam. Stuff here might be PVC. It's not super durable, you can kind of tell. So the amount of tension and pressure and stress that the foil is going to put on this box, this track. So Ryan suggested a few things, and I had to look around for some really dense polyurethane foam. The only stuff I could find locally and even online was 2 pound. I did find some higher densities up to, I think, 16 pound. The problem was I had to buy it in such large quantities, and that wasn't really useful to me. I couldn't find a supplier that was able to supply me with just a small quantity. So necessity is the mother of invention. And well, this isn't really much of an invention, but we're gonna go back to basics. I have here white pine, and it's very light. Like, I think what I'm gonna do is, for this board anyway, until I can figure something out for the track box, until I can source proper polyurethane, I'm gonna make a track box out of pine. It'll be strong, but this is fairly light. This was also really expensive. The price of lumber has gone up significantly since COVID. This was 20 bucks. That's crazy. Okay, enough rambling. Let's make a track box. Fairly simple. Glue up this pine. I'm gonna 3D print some templates for these track boxes, and I'll also share those templates so you guys can use them as well. Okay, let's do it. I'm just cleaning up all the edges. I don't have a planer or a jointer to do this. Just gonna remove the glue here, flatten this down a little bit, and then router out the boxes. All right, I'm gonna go about 8 inches back from the tail. To be honest, I really don't know. They say for a board this long, you should probably go with anywhere from 6 to 12 inches from the tail. So I'm just gonna go 8 inches. I'm using an 8B lead pencil. These are awesome. Very, very soft lead, so it's really great for tracing out on foam. Just marks really easy on this foam. Look how, even though this is super soft foam, you can just write on it really nice. All right, I got my DIY cassette finished. It's looking pretty good. It's actually a lot lighter than I thought it would be. Who would have thought white pine is actually quite light? Cedar would have been even lighter, but I had a hard time finding cedar. And ideally, polyurethane foam, which I had a very hard time sourcing. So, I'm gonna glue this in with some polyurethane glue. I already cut out the hole. I left part of the stringer because this foam is kind of a little bit, I was worried about the flexing, so I didn't want it to break. And what'll happen is I channeled out part of the cassette here, so that way it will glue to the stringer, and that should provide lots of strength. A very nice, close, tight tolerance fit. So I'm just going to use some polyurethane glue and some water to glue it in. All right, I realized I had some gaps on the edge here. So I figured what I would do is I would take some shims and just fill it up real tight so there's no play whatsoever. So I have a lot of the cassette matted, well, instead of there just being polyurethane glue that's kind of foamy holding it up against the foam, this will be nice and solid. Alright, it's time to seal up this board because, well, this EPS is very, very porous, very light. So very important to seal it so this doesn't absorb a ton of resin. Although that might strengthen it, but it might also turn it into a brick. To seal it with this polyfiller stuff that I've talked about in all my other videos, this is the stuff I like using because it matches very well. Although I am putting some paint on this. If you can't find it in your country, spackling works fairly well for drywall, although it is much heavier. This stuff is really, really light. Alright, time to give this a quick little bit of artwork, paint job I guess. I'm just gonna keep it simple because just so I can figure out this whole prone foil surfing thing. Just gonna hit it with some acrylic paint. This came out really well. Super, super happy with this. It's actually, like, I'm surprised at how light it is. Okay, Maybe I'll do something like this. I don't know. Something so satisfying removing a nice sharp tape line. So I'm going to end the video here. I've quickly given this a paint job, going with just a kind of a blue theme with white in the center. Covering with acrylic paint. Center is actually latex paint, house paint, flat house paint, just to kind of smooth it out because this foam tears so easy. I am going to make a stand-up paddle board for the foil as well. That'll probably be the next board. And I have getting some custom cut EPS foam that's denser than this stuff. Regardless, next video I'll just finish off the board. I figured this is a good place to end it. So to recap, I glued some Home Depot EPS foam together, hot wired it, shaped it, then built a cassette for the Futures Finboxes that are going to be used for the rail system to attach the foil. I made that out of white pine, so it's fairly light because I wasn't able to get any polyurethane pour foam. So once I installed the cassette, after that got all set up, I sealed the board, give it paint now, and yeah, that's about it. In the next video, what I'll do is I'll just red out some holes for leash plugs in the back. I'll probably put 2 in, so that way I can probably put a handle on the back too. I've noticed some of these boards, people put handles on them because it's a little easier to control, to kind of maneuver the board if you need to move it around out in the water, or I guess it's just handy to have. I also have to put in vents because this is a very porous, very not very dense EPS foam. And then also install in the fin boxes in this cassette. Glue those in, glass like normally you would, hot coat, possibly gloss coat, sand, surf. This should be a very interesting board. I have to say the design of this board is chunky, as I've said before. It's very thick, very different than any board I've ever made. Lots of float, but this is just an analog or a vehicle so you can get up on the foil. So that's the intention of this board. So that's why it's not really designed like a traditional surfboard. So I'm gonna end the video here. This has been a very interesting build, I have to say. Very easy because I'm just applying all the skills that I know previously to this board. It's mainly the design that's kind of interesting. It's very squat, very wide, very thick, especially the volume. It's very, very thick. All right, see you guys in the next video.